Chris Morris from Northwest Beneficials. He'll tell us a little bit about the beneficial insects that they carry. Next, I'd like to invite Chris up to stage from Northwest Beneficials. Thank you, Matt. And again, Chris, thank you so much for making the drive from out east today. Big round of applause for Chris Morris, everyone.
Hello, how are you? It's great to be here in Eugene. Made the trip over from Bend today. Bend, I just read, is the most popular and most in transition in the entire U.S. for cities under 100,000 people. And this Memorial Day weekend, it was definitely there. There were so many, thousands and thousands. Anyhow, what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is beneficial insects. And let's see, we're going to get started here. One of the biggest ones, and I hear about it all the time in particularly in the southern Willamette Valley, and that is root aphids. And in fact, I had somebody that is a cannabis grower over in Central Oregon, and they said they had some mysterious plants that just did poorly, and some of them actually died. And I showed him some of these pictures, and he said, "I'll bet that's it." It never occurred to him that it was something below ground. And root aphids are pretty insidious because they are below ground, below the surface of the soil, and hardly ever show very much at all. So this is one picture of them, and they're the kind of orangish spots. And what they do is they are feeding on the small roots. This is a little bit bigger close-up, so you can see them just a little bit better. And there can literally be thousands and thousands, dozens in a square inch. They really are quite prevalent. One of the things also that I hear about a lot, and they are not typically nearly as damaging, is fungus gnats. But they are pretty annoying. People don't like them, and they are somewhat harmful in their larval stage. In fact, here I think, let's see, yeah, there's a fungus gnat larva, and they look like a very, very small little worm. And they are the ones that actually do the damage because they live below ground. And so, but they're also, because they are clear, except for when they're eating something that is colored, they're very, very difficult to spot even because they're just not noticeable, and they are very small. So one of the things that we supply, and in fact, Oregon Constant Gardener sells an incredible number of them, and a great number of them are for root aphids in particular, but it's actually, they are effective on about 230 different soil-borne pests, is beneficial nematodes. And this particular one is Steinernema feltii, which is the most common one. Recommended dosage is important, and it's nice and easy. It's about 35,000 per square foot. They are a very small, near microscopic worm. Yeah. So in fact, if you happen to see some of them when they're in the package, they come in a little 1-pint container in vermiculite. And if you want, someone can take a look at them. I'll show them to you after. The nematodes, sometimes a few of them will escape out the little vent hole, and it looks like paste. Looks like kind of an off-white paste, and it's because they are that small. But what they do is pretty remarkable. What they do is you place them into the soil media, and what they do is they burrow down slowly. It may take them a day or two to get a few inches down, but what they do is they invade the bodies of the pests. Typically, the most effective way that they do it is through the spiracles, which are basically like, you can kind of think of them as nostrils, although they're typically on most insects, they're along the sides of their body. They're their breathing tubes. They invade them, they go into the pest, release some bacteria that pre-digests the inside of the insect, and then the nematode can feed on this semi-digested goo. Yeah. And then after they've been there for maybe a few days, few weeks, depending on the temperature, the number of nematodes that show up, they kind of do a thing like the old movie Alien. They pop out the sides and go in search of more pests. But of course, in the meantime, they have multiplied sometimes hundreds of times, and so they come out much more numerous than they went in. And the neat part about the nematodes is that literally you could eat them, anything. Give them to the pet, give them to the dog, cat, kids. Now they may be disgusting, but they won't hurt them because they only affect not insect life. Mammals, they just die. As soon as they hit your digestive system, even into your bloodstream, they die. They can't take that. That's a strange environment for them that is inhospitable completely, and they die. So they are completely non-toxic, just disgusting. I wouldn't drink any, so don't be tempted. Let's see. Well, here's an outline of what I did. I forgot that I'd written this. Did this a few days ago. One thing you kind of get an idea of, though, is treatment. I just did I checked for somebody a few weeks ago, and they had some pots that were about 3 square feet, and they had about 100 of them. And it just happened to be that 1 10 million size of nematodes will do about 96, just around 100 pots. And so they're very inexpensive also for using as a non-chemical pesticide. Most effective, they're most active, 55 to 75 degrees soil temperature. The only thing you have to be careful of is that you can't subject them to really high heat. Above 85 degrees, they start dying. But that's why in soil, they typically won't have a problem. If it gets too warm, they will just migrate down a little bit. You do have to keep them wet. Moisture levels have to be acceptable to them. Not soaking wet, but they do require that. It also moderates the temperature. Let's see. Oh yeah, one thing is these are in vermiculite, and so you may have seen beneficial nematodes utilized in a sponge. One thing about the sponges is that they work. Difference is that you have 2 things that are not usually anywhere near as good. One is that shelf life is relatively short. Typically you have to disperse them within a month or 2 of when they're placed in the sponge. The ones in vermiculite have a shelf life, if they're refrigerated at 38 to 40 degrees, of about a year. So if you only have a relatively small need, you can actually use part and then store them and use the balance of it within 1 year. And even after that, out to about 16 months, you'll just lose between 12 months and 16 months, you'll lose about 10% per month. So even at 16 months, you still have about 60% of them viable. So it's not a complete loss. And if they don't find anything that they like to chow down on immediately, they can live for about a year without any food. All they need is just a damp soil, which is pretty amazing, but they are very simple creatures, but they do the job. I wanted to show you a little about spider mites and aphids, because that's always a common problem, sometimes the year more than others. And most people have seen them, but I thought I found some kind of neat pictures that were up close. Here, of course, there's some nice spider mites. Oh, wonderful things. But they're all soft-bodied, sap-sucking insects, and they rob vitality from the plant. They can actually, in some cases, kill them, but certainly they can degrade your harvest, either the quality or the quantity, and sometimes that can be really significant. These are some of our this is our convergent ladybugs, and convergent ladybugs are the most common kind. They are the ones that don't invade people's houses. Sell lots of them because everybody knows what they are. They are very effective on all soft-bodied sap-sucking insects. This one on the left is a juvenile, and even on the back of our package, we always show a nice color picture of that just so people know what it is, because when we very first started our business, someone bought some ladybugs from us, put them in their greenhouse. They had a huge aphid problem. They called back about 3 or 4 weeks later. They said, hey, we're great on getting rid of all the aphids, but I see all these little bugs are running around all over the place. How do I get rid of them? And they described them. I said, is it this and this and this? Oh, yeah. I said, no, those are the juvenile. Those are the larval form, and they are actually more predaceous and have a greater appetite for aphids and spider mites than the adults do. So that's what they look like, and that is actually a nice close-up. One of the TV stations that did a story on us had a picture that was very similar to the one on the right of a ladybug actually eating aphids, and they don't go and kill them. They just pick them up and start eating, so they don't waste any time. Let's see. That's what our ladybugs look like, just so you can see them. One package usually cover about 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, but it's always dependent upon how much vegetation you have, the degree of infestation, but you really can't overtreat. Let's see. And that's what they look like. 1,500 ladybugs is quite a few. Most people, in fact, they always go, oh, that's a lot, because they usually see 2 or 3 together in a garden, and they say, oh, I see ladybugs. So just to give you a comparison, that's 1/50th of a gallon. We make 50 packages of ladybugs out of 1 gallon of ladybugs. This year we'll go through about 3,000 gallons. So it's not all that many to me. One of the things, and this is not strictly a pest control, it's something fairly new on the market, both commercially and at the retail market level, and that is vermipods. And vermipods, they are an encapsulated earthworm egg. They look like a little ball of clay about the size of a split pea, small pea. And what they contain is 6 different varieties of earthworm eggs within them. And the neat part about them is that people who don't want to touch or see slimy worms can use them and just plant them literally like you would a kernel of corn. And they hatch a week or 2 later, and they release this 6 different varieties. The most prevalent one, we did the mix, and the reason we made this mix is because the most common one that people use is Icenia fetida, the red wigglers, composting worms. It's the most common, but we have some other varieties in there. And what they do is the other worms are better at processing different foods, working at different levels, different temperatures, and different soil depths. And so it is a mix, but it's about 1/3 is Icenia fetidas. And I think most everybody knows what worms do. So they take in organic material and excrete wonderful worm castings that are high in nutrients, won't burn, and do all kinds of great things. That's about it. This is my picture. I love that picture. It's with some new spinach, and it was so pretty I had to put it up. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll even tell you about how to get ladybugs, but go ahead. Yeah, any questions? Over here,
All
Erica.
right, big round of applause for Chris Morris. And we'll open up the floor to questions.
Erica,
Yes.
over here.
Oh, thank you.
broad mites. Do ladybugs help with broad mites or brown?
Yes. There are some other things that are even, and I didn't include them in this. We also do green lacewings, eggs, and oftentimes one of the best things to do is put ladybugs and green lacewings together because they don't prey on each other. But the benefit to using green lacewings and ladybugs is that the green lacewings, when they hatch into their larval form, they're very, very small. And so you get a greater predation on a variety of sizes of plant pests. Not just large, not just small, but the whole spectrum.
Oh, hands, please.
Oh, one.
Is that a piggyback question?
Ladybugs eat broad mites? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, they will prey on almost any mite.
So that'd be outdoor only, right?
Oh no. I have people. I have people that place ladybugs, I think, more prevalently into greenhouses. Yeah, indoor. Yeah. Yeah, and that is a problem sometimes depending on the situation. Yeah, is that they will. That's one of the things why green lacewings oftentimes they will still do that a little bit. They will still go to the light a little bit, but because you're primarily working on the larval form, and that they can't fly, and so they're going to stay pretty much where they're put. They will move a few feet, as in 10 to 20 feet, but they don't move. They can't fly like ladybugs, and ladybugs always travel a lot more also. Yeah.
Another good trick for that is if you spray their wings down with sugar water before releasing into the garden. The wings are literally stuck to their bodies and they can't fly off. You can also make cloches. We can talk afterwards. A few tricks and tips.
Hi, I have a strawberry patch, and I just planted it not too long ago, and they're being invaded by some sort of worms, like really small worm holes in almost every ripe strawberry. Would the beneficial nematodes help for something like that, or should I look for another solution?
I would have to look a little bit into finding out what the pest actually was. I don't know the one you're talking about offhand, so. Yeah, I'll give you one of my cards, and we can give me a call, and we can try to see if we can figure out what it is. Okay? Because I have the producer on this on the nematodes in particular. I've been working with them for about 25 years, and the father, who is now deceased, started the company about 25 years ago, and he died 3 years ago, pancreatic cancer. But his best student ever happened to be his wife, and they have continued on the company, and they are one of the leading experts on beneficial nematodes in the United States, if not the world. They're that good because they have decades of experience now. So I'll give you one of my cards, and we can talk about it.
Another question in back.
Hi, I was just wondering about nematodes and pillbugs, and like which one you'd rather use, like because I know that pillbugs put minerals back into the soil and like recultivate the soil, or at least like help with that. So I'm wondering if nematodes do that as well, or.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding you.
Oh, sorry. I'm just wondering if nematodes like cultivate and put minerals back into the soil as well, like pillbugs do, or if nematodes are like the, suggested.
Yeah, these nematodes are primarily for pest control, and they are not necessarily ones that would have anything to do with nutrition. Yeah.
I was wondering what one would do what's your favorite remedy for thrips in like indoor gardens?
Yeah, green lacewing eggs, very effective. They eat the eggs. The adults are tougher to get. Ladybugs will take some of the adults. Again, it's oftentimes good to have a two-pronged attack because one particular predator may not be completely effective. And because they're relatively inexpensive, both of them, they can be very effective and still not break the bank. Yeah.
Is it
next?
feasible that a nematode could be applied as a foliar spray in any way?
Well, you can follow the instructions on the box that we provide, but there are several different ways. I'm not particularly fond of foliar sprays for nematodes. Actually, you spray the soil, and you're just using the water as a carrier medium, because they actually work in the soil. They don't do anything above ground. And so one of the things that especially if it's all individual pots rather than like beds of some sort, if you're doing some kind of food agriculture, is literally put, like I mentioned the cannabis grower actually that I talked to, and we did a calculation. They had some 3 square foot pots, and at 35,000 per, it ended up it's about 1 teaspoon of dry media, and you literally sprinkle them on, water them. What that does is that actually washes the nematodes out of the vermiculite. They go down into the soil, and then they have plenty of water at the surface, and they can start to disperse. So that's the easiest way. You can actually wash them out beforehand out of the vermiculite, strain out the vermiculite, and run them through a hand pump sprayer. You don't want to use a high pressure mechanical sprayer because it'll kill a great number of the nematodes. So you want to use it. The one reason I like to disperse them dry, is because you get a more accurate dosage, and it's really fast. You don't have to do anything. You open up the top, you determine how much you need for each container, and disperse them, and then just water them in. And you can either hand water them, or if you have an irrigation system, turn it on, let it run for 5 or 10 minutes, and that'll do the job. I'm always for making it as easy as possible.
Perfect.
Had one here.
We got a hand up front.
Oh, we got it? Okay. All right. Anything else?
Other questions?
Oh. Okay.
Okay, so I read something recently about ladybugs that come refrigerated.
That they do what?
Refrigerated. And that they're not as effective.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
And the reason is because first of all, the reason we refrigerate them is so they don't die from overheating. Ladybugs don't like to be overheated. And so in fact, in our packaging, what we do is we put them in a fine mesh plastic bag with it's shredded aspen excelsior so they can spread out. Also, another feature of refrigerating them is they think it's winter. So they think it's winter, they come out, and they mate, they lay eggs, and they lay the eggs, and so you'll have a first generation of larvae even certainly within a week, and sometimes even sooner. Sometimes I've seen them where I knew that some of the ladybugs that I had released just in my yard or around, that they were laying eggs within 1 or 2 days. Eggs look like a little cluster of about usually 10 to 20. They're rice, like the shape of a grain of rice, only about half the size. Semi-transparent and slightly yellowish. You'll find them on the bottom sides of the leaves. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Well, I gotta thank Chris so heartily. And of course, Chris sends us our ladybugs and our predatory nematodes for our refrigerators every week at Constant
yeah.
Gardener. And
Thank you.
we appreciate your expertise so much. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Big round of applause.